This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
There you go. It is. Yeah, it's ready.
Okay. This meeting is called to order. Welcome to everyone in attendance. This is the Easthampton City Council Public Safety Meeting. Today is May 3rd, 2022. It is 6:01 p.m. In attendance, I see our two committee members. We also have another city council member here and Director of Public Works, Greg Nettleman. Just a couple ground rules. Just raise your hand to be recognized to speak. I'll allow public input as comments. I'd like to try to avoid kind of back and forth with the public. We'll allow them to make statements when their period of statements is done. Councilors can decide if they'd like to respond to anything. Obviously, other welcome guests here, just raise your hand to speak. Councilors can, of course, ask follow-up questions. So if you ask a question, for instance, of Director Nettleman, and the answers, feel free to just ask a follow-up question, but try your best to maintain order. We have a couple minutes. I saw that Councilor Riley, our fantastic clerk, sent us minutes from March 24th, and I sent out minutes earlier as well from, when was that? I think it was, did you two get the ones that I sent out?
Yep. So March 24th,
March 24th
and April 27th.
April 27th, thank
Yep.
you. Did Councilor Draper, did you get a chance to see either of those?
I did. I saw both.
And did you see? Obviously, saw the ones you submitted, Councilor Riley. Did you see the ones I sent out?
Yes. I wasn't at the meeting though,
Right.
but everything looks fine to me.
Okay, so I think what we would do then in that case is Councilor Riley, having been absent from one of those, I'll take separate motions. So I would take a motion first to approve the minutes from March 24th.
So moved.
And I'll second that since I was the only person there. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we don't have to do roll call then.
Abstain.
Great. Separately, I'll take a motion for the minutes submitted by Councilor Riley. And again, I'm sorry, remind me of that date. 27th of April. I'll take a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Yep.
We have a motion and a second. The only question I'd say on those, I believe that Hampshire Hope is the funding source there, but it might be via the DART program. So I don't think we can always clarify those later. It's nothing huge. So we have a motion and a second. Any other comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? No. Okay, moving on. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak tonight? Or any other members present?
Is that?
We're not hybrid.
Oh, no.
No, we're figuring that out.
Okay.
We have another councilor here. Councilor, do you have any comments?
No.
Or Director Nolan, do you have any comments as a member of the public? Okay, no. So no public speak time. So moving on to our next item on the agenda, Department of Public Works report. As you're probably aware, we're doing quarterly reports from public safety, which I consider DPW part of public safety. And we appreciate all you do. As I was saying earlier, your response time. So are there any opening comments from the councilors of the committee before I turn it over to Director Nettleman? Okay, Director Nettleman, you have the floor.
Okay, so I hope I covered what the committee was hoping that I would in this presentation. I think this will be great for not only for the committee but the public, just to break down the DPW, what in the city we're responsible for, and kind of some of the things we're working on right now. So just jump into it here. So put an organizational chart together to talk about how we're broken down, where the Board of Public Works is responsible for everything the department handles. Myself as director, I'm responsible for building operations, which is the public safety complex, council on aging, and the municipal office building. DPW is further broken down into kind of 5 divisions: highway, utilities, engineering, administration, and wastewater treatment. The highway division consists of 1 supervisor, a foreman, and 5 full-time staff members. Kind of under the highway department, we have the motor repair division, which is 1 foreman and a lead mechanic. 2 full-time staff there, and they're responsible for maintenance of about 100. Our fleet's about 100 vehicles and pieces of equipment. That's citywide between the school department, parks department, and public works, police, and fire. The utility division takes care of the water and sewer utilities for the town, city for drainage. They run the water treatment plant on Hendrick Street, the sanitary sewer collection system, and all the stormwater infrastructure for the city. That consists of the supervisor, our water quality manager, who handles all of our bacteria sampling, the cross-connection control program, a lot of the regulatory compliance that we need to do for with the state for the public water system. And that division has 2 foremen, 1 in the sewer department, sewer division, and 1 in the water department. And then between water and sewer, there's 8 full-time staff members. The engineering division consists of our city engineer, Dan Murphy, and our staff engineer, Diane Rossini. Absolutely. Every person I talk about here is an asset for the city. I mean, Dan and Diane really do a good job helping keeping our programs, our projects moving along. And then the administration, which is myself, our 2 full-time staff in the office, Michelle, our bookkeeper, and Ariel, our accounts payable clerk. And then kind of under the administration division, I call it the administration division, is the tree warden and management of city streetlights. And then the wastewater treatment plant. Of course, we have 1 foreman down there, industrial pretreatment program coordinator who handles the compliance with grease trap inspections and things with restaurants and some of the regulatory compliance stuff with the plant. And there's 5 full-time staff down there. So they also maintain the 18 pump stations located throughout the city that convey the sanitary sewer flows to different neighborhoods too. So that's pretty much the whole DPW. So as I said, building operations consists of the management and maintenance of the City Hall, Public Safety Complex, Council on Aging. Some of the priorities there, we're going to be looking at a roof replacement on the safety complex in the next few years. We do need to do some replacement of the curbing there. There's concrete curb that's really deteriorating around the parking lot. Some of the HVAC improvements we'll be covering with the Honeywell Energy Efficiency Project, phase 1 of that, which is starting to get underway. So, looking forward to that, to the improvements, getting those improvements in place for the guys in that building. So here at 50 Payson, we're starting with a lot will be happening in this building with the with phase 1 of the Honeywell project. We're also beginning to work on a project that will just kind of do a light remodel of the inside of the building. A lot of the offices have changed. We need to get new signage, wayfinding signs for around the building. I'd like to get some landscaping work done outside and just kind of freshen up the space, replace some carpets. I think the last renovation here was back, I think, in 2003. So everything's about 20 years old. It's time to just do a little bit here and there. You know, the COA, I think there'll be some larger community conversations soon around that building and how the city wants to move forward with it. There's some significant investments to be made there. A couple of things, you know, we're gonna do some of the kind of the low-hanging fruit, some of the smaller stuff that can be done in our O&M budget or replacement, little things. But there's some bigger conversations that I think the community needs to get started on. So I've been working a little with Cindy, the director over there, about how she's going to move the center forward. Some of how that building moves forward is centered around the building itself. There's quite a bit of work to do there. The highway department, a few of the capital priorities that we'll be working on soon. We do need to badly replace the street sweeper. I got a picture of it down there in the corner, guys. It's 2006. We generally get 5, 6, 8 years of service out of a street sweeper. So we're limping that.
You only have 1?
We have 1. Yep. And Dennis and Nate over Motor Repair do a heck of a job keeping that thing operating, but it is out of service quite often. So that capital expense, and that's about $275,000 for new sweeper. We are in the process of replacing truck 61. Put an appropriation through last month for replacement of that vehicle. So I'll get into the Glendale Bridge a little bit more in the next couple slides. But there's a lot of sidewalk work around town, around the city we'll be working on. I'll get into some of the South Street and some of the other things we're picking away at, and we're doing what we can. But there's some significant investments to make. We do have a couple I'll get into about Oak Street and some of the pedestrian safety improvements that we're working towards making there. So
I'm just going to cut in here.
Yeah,
for the
go ahead.
record. Would it be easier for you if people ask questions as you go along, or do you want to make the questions at the end?
Depending what it pertains to, I mean, I can, as I get through other slides, I'm sure you're going to have questions about some of the projects. But if there's anything specific to the highway department, you want to?
Anyone have questions so far?
I guess the only question I have is on the street sweeper. I feel like it wasn't that long ago that we did something with the street sweeper. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's in my recent memory.
Okay.
And because I know there was talk about renting versus buying a new one versus. Were you around for that? I'm just, I know that we use a street sweeper in the spring generally.
Yep.
The point of it is to get the salt and sand or whatever residuals on the roads off, right? And so I guess, I think it would be interesting to see what kind of creative solutions we could come up with around. Do we buy a new street sweeper? Is it worth it? Do we look at, hiring somebody once a year to come in to do it? But I'm sure that's on your radar. I just remembered, I couldn't remember if we bought a used one, and that's why it's a 2006.
No.
So that's the one we've had
That's the one we've had. Yes.
All right. So.
And some of the street sweeping is necessary for compliance with our municipal storm sewer, our MS4 permit.
Right.
So that we're required to do a certain amount of year to keep the salt out of catch basins. And not the waterways.
Mr. Riley, anything so far?
Yeah.
Big project. This is a big highway department project right now. We're in the middle of mill and overlay Prospect Hill Avenue and Searle Avenue. A whole bunch of drainage work, replacement of several water services, replacement of a couple fire hydrants. We built it up. Hoping to get that paved in the next few weeks. The underground work is starting to wind down. So.
It was eventually some of them is in my district.
Yeah.
They've been asking for years.
Yeah.
What we're going to do it, finally we're doing it, so thanks.
So that repair, I have a picture up there in the bottom right, is a huge drainage repair that the water and sewer guys did kind of pulled together and did a great job on last week. There was actually 5 catch basins installed in that corner of the street because it all pitches that way. I think years ago that road might have gone all the way through before National Now Move was expanded or before the drain. I'm not sure, but
And then they built their house after.
yes,
Is that the corner of High Street?
that's High Street and Prospect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So that kind of came up with a very creative solution there. Put those two large grates, two large drainage structures in. Once we get it, it'll look great once it's all paved. Hopefully, it'll all work the way we're planning. So.
Right behind that is the bike path and the pond.
Yes. So we did a bunch of sidewalk point repairs, taking one of the worst panels. We're kind of working with doing what we can with what we have over there. And would have liked to have done more sidewalk, but financially it's not really in the cards right now. So it'll be good passing the sidewalk on every street. So onto the Glendale Bridge. This is a large expense that the city's going to be looking at. Going to be facing in the next few years. I don't want to put too much light to it. It does get inspected by the state annually. Last year, or June of 21, we had the splice plate replacement. In the top left there, you can see the old splice plate on the bridge. And we worked with Freeman Peterson, GPI engineering firm, and Kodiak, bridge repair contractor, to get those splice plates replaced and kind of buy some time for the bridge. But you can see by the pictures just what we're dealing with the concrete deterioration, the railing deteriorating. In the bottom left there, you can see some great steel kind of encasements for the railings those were actually fabricated by our guys over at Motor Repair Dennis years and years ago. So the engineering firm was very impressed with how he made those, and it was done by someone in-house. But we've had trouble getting that bridge to fit into some of the state funding programs that are out there. It's either too long, too short, too wide, and it's just been a challenging thing to find funding for. So, you know, we're constantly looking. We've got repair and replacement estimates in the area of $2.5 million. Just design in the area of 200,000. So,
have you spoken to Representative Carey about if there's ability to earmark money from the infrastructure bill for this? Does that fall under?
a little. And I actually had a conversation with Congressman Neal's office last week, or 2 weeks ago. They didn't really think they could slide this into anything pertinent right now. So we're on it. Our eyes are out looking at every state program that comes to try to find a way to do this. I mean, a couple of the recommendations we've gotten from our consultants were to roll our Chapter 90 funding for it would be 5-6 years of Chapter 90 funding.
Yep.
So no other paving.
Huh.
That was one. Try to get it on the state tip process, which is that we'd be years out on that. We'd probably be looking 2030 maybe. And then the tip process requires a more extensive level of design that would certainly increase the design costs. So,
Is there any estimate on how long that bridge would stay viable without like a total overhaul? I mean, in terms of like it, because I know sometimes, right, if you're not a structural engineer, you can look at that and think that it looks horrible. But
yep.
It's probably going to last a lot longer than I think most people would assume. Do you know when that is?
Well, it's currently posted. So the way it's posted for weight. So it'll only take a certain amount of weight over so many axles on you. If I had to put a year range to that bridge, I'd say 5 to 8 years.
Okay.
But the state could inspect it this fall when it's due, and that could change.
Okay.
So I just want to have that on everybody's radar.
Yeah.
It is a
question.
I was just gonna. So at this point, it's not considered like a failing bridge, but I mean, it could when it gets inspected, it could potentially fall into that category. Which I think there's lots of bridges in that category. Right?
This one's our worst.
This is our worst.
There's bridges across the state.
I imagine when that gets redone, it'll probably be closed for the duration. They won't put a temporary bridge in.
I have looked at a concept they put together where we would have alternating traffic, one lane of alternating traffic, and we could do it that way. I'd like to see it done that way, just because
the West Street.
They need to get an ambulance or a fire truck out to Loudville Road. We want that to be passable, especially with the mutual aid the fire department supplies to Westhampton. That's their way to get there. So. Some just quick discussion of the water department, wastewater collections from water utility guys. So like their, basic focus is implementing the recommendations of the Integrated Water Resource Management Plan, IWRMP, that we talk about a lot. We try to fund what we can and take away what we can off that plan. But really, their main focus is just keep the water in the pipes and coming out of them where you want it to, and not where you don't want it to. So. They operate the plant on Hendrick Street. Picture on the bottom left, there's the Hendrick Street well field. We pull about, I'd say 30% of the city's water from that source. There's 120 2.5-inch well heads out there that go down into the aquifer and supply the low-end pump station to the Hendrick Street aeration tower, and we treat the water there. That's a picture of water main that broke on, that's on Ferry Street. Super cold. I think that was back in 2018. They start to blur together.
Now, do we have water storage capability? I know that there's a tank on the base on the foothills of Mount Tom, and then there's one over off Hendrick Street up. So at least those are the two I know about.
So the tank on Mount Tom was taken out of service in 2010.
And so no water gets stored there.
No.
And is that what it was for? It was just
it
for
was
storage?
A water storage tank. Yeah. There was trouble with it getting bacteria hits,
right,
and leaking, and that's where the bacteria hits were coming from. So they took it offline. But we keep 6 million gallons of water in storage. We've got 2 million on Burt Road, and 4 million up on Drury Lane.
Okay. So Drury is the other one. That's right. And how are those? Like, what's the Because it sounds like that one got old
Mhm.
and wasn't able. The other one's in pretty good shape.
Yeah,
Like,
they're pre-stressed concrete tanks. The tank on Bird Road was put in service, I think, in 2002. Drury Lane, 1986 or 88. Both are. I've had them inspected recently, and they're both structurally in very good shape. So,
I hate to kill you with questions here.
no,
but,
it's fine. No,
as far as water storage and water demand, how long, say there was some sort of issue and we weren't able to get water up for some reason, contamination or something, how long would we have?
we have an amazingly robust water system. If we can't supply it, I mean, just the Nonotuck well, so we have three main sources, right? The Brook Street well, the Nonotuck well, the Hendrick Street pump station. Any one of those three sources will supply 100% of the city's water.
Mhm.
I mean, we might put a notice out and ask to conserve, take it easy, but we can do it with either one of the three. The tank up on Bird Road basically sets a hydraulic rating for the city. We float that tank between 48 and 52 feet to keep water pressure. Yeah, without anyone noticing the difference.
Mhm.
Are there any federal grants or any grants or capability that we could tap into to expand our water storage capacity? And the reason I'm asking is it might seem crazy, but I think that as we look into the future, it might make sense for the city. Having extra water on hand that we might be able to sell.
So we do. We're currently permitted from the state to pump about 7 million gallons of water a day. We operate off of a Water Management Act registration, it's called.
Yep.
We do have a Water Management Act permit for the Brook Street well, which is why we have to put water use restrictions in place. Otherwise, we could just operate, if we didn't use that well or had never developed that well, we could just operate off our Water Management Act registration. So we do sell water to Southampton as needed, and we have the capacity to do that. I wouldn't, if I had if I had an opportunity to build another storage tank, I don't think I would want to use funding to do that. I'd probably focus on another part of the system, another type of resiliency.
Yep.
Because we start to have trouble with the age of water and storage, and we have to sample each tank times a month, and we start with bacteria trouble if the tanks aren't turning.
Right.
So it can be challenging to keep the water in storage and keep it.
Because I have a feeling in the near future, some of the southwestern states are going to be looking for communities to partner with to get water.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, living in Arizona for a while, Lake Mead is rapidly,
It's in tough shape out there.
it's really rough.
Yeah.
And so they're going to probably be looking to, in order to stay viable,
Yeah.
they're going to, and if we can come up with some of those partnerships, that could be pretty lucrative for the city.
Yeah.
So, something just to,
It's great to see the connection we have with Southampton. It's 100% metered. We can supply 100% of Southampton. They haven't relied on us too much, but it's nice to see we have that there. We can't really rely on them, but we can help out.
Councilor Riley, any water related questions?
All good.
Good questions, Councilor.
A little bit more about the utilities division. That truck up there in the corner is truck 33. It's 1999 International. It still runs good, but it's just rusting out. It's getting to we got some decisions to make about whether we're going to keep throwing good money at that truck. So it's just to the point where we really need to look for a replacement for years. Looking at about $200,000 for truck.
and that's the main truck for main brakes and stuff.
So that truck kind of takes a backseat role now, but yes, it does haul our equipment out when we have water main breaks. We try not to run that every day. It's got the catch basin cleaner mounted on it, and we don't generally clean catch basins with that style of equipment anymore. We have the let's go back and slide here. We have the Vector truck now. We use that for catch basin cleaning and sewer jetting. So it's much safer, cleaner way to do it than using the stick or cleaner. So.
It's only a single cab. Has it take a back seat? I didn't want to seem too serious here. Anyways.
But
Sorry.
no, so we've got the. I just had an appropriation through for the storage of Unit 29, which is our Vector Flusher combo truck. That was on the other slide.
That was the garage.
The garage.
Yeah, the garage addition of the sewer department. So we're looking forward to getting that project moving. Another one that just came through was the low head pump station, Pineville communication repair. So the low head pump station, the picture on the bottom left there, that's the pumps that pull water out of the Henry Street well field and supply it to the plant. Those are 1996. It's just time for them to come out and go get a quick overhaul and go back in. So before it turns into something larger. And, we've just had some trouble with the fiber optic communications between the Pines Well, the low head pump station, and the plant. So fairly local to the water department on Henry Street, but needs to be addressed.
Is that what that little building is at down at O'Neill and Pleasant? That is near the bridge there. Is that also a pump?
That is the Lovefield Street wastewater pump station.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, it's wastewater.
yes,
Oh, I didn't realize that.
yeah, it's one of our largest ones. I just an appropriation actually just went through for that for the air release valve replacement and bypass design. It's
And
one
then-
of our largest stations in the city.
The one at Nonotuck is
So
in the back near the pond, near the soccer fields.
yep,
No,
that's
well,
the-
there's two actually there, right? There's the big one with the cedar.
Yep, that is the Brook Street pump station.
Yep, and then there's a little one like that that's over by the in the back.
That the Nonotuck well, just kind of closer to the baseball field.
Yep.
And then right where you come in Nonotuck Park on the right is the Daily Field pump station.
Right.
That and Lovefield Street are two of our largest wastewater pumping stations.
Okay.
Daily Field takes a lot of the wastewater flow from the plains, Line Street, everything out that way. And then
No, I had a, Mr. Chair, sorry, I have just one, because when we were talking about water, I had a question and I just lost it. Do we test our water for PFAS?
yes,
And how are we doing with
even
PFAS?
non-detect.
Great.
Yeah.
And because if that got into our water, it'd be a huge expense for filtration, right? Like that's
Yes.
like massive.
Yeah.
And that's pretty awesome that we don't.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
it's-
Yeah. And we took advantage of some free testing that the state made available the last couple of years, and we've stayed non-detect. They say the aquifer kind of flows north and south,
Yeah.
and Barnes, where some of the contamination originated, and then Westfield kind of got the brunt of it, where we've avoided it being to the north of where the contamination.
So we're lucky. That's really
Yeah,
lucky.
extremely.
The term's familiar. What do you also for the public?
Pearly chlorinated.
Perfluoral alkyl substances.
Okay.
It's the foam that they would use to put out jet fuel fires.
Oh, from like Barnes and like you were saying
And they also use
earlier.
it as like waterproof coatings and stuff.
Yeah,
It
it's
just
just
it doesn't break down.
Some of the non-stick on the food wrappers.
Yep, it's Teflon.
Like that. Yeah. So
Good.
don't want it in the drinking water. That's for sure.
Anything else, Councilor Bradley? Councilor Reed, you follow?
Sorry.
No, these are good questions.
Sorry.
Like you did. You're making me think about a lot of things.
So the wastewater treatment plant, we've got a lot of capital investment to make down there. And I didn't carry too much of it in for tonight's discussion. A lot of it's in the IWRMP. We are in the process of applying for a grant for it's a Long Island Sound Wildlife Initiative, I think it's called, for $1.2 million to replace the 3 aerators we have. And that's one of them operating. Picture on the right there. So hopefully that comes through. We'll have some match funding that we need to bring to that table for that, but hopefully it will. And then as we were just talking, the Lovefield Street pump station, we've got some pretty significant investments to make there, as well as the Liberty Street pump station. You'll see an appropriation coming through some some design, some really study to decide what direction to go with the Liberty Street station. It's greatly oversized for the flows it takes now, and all these buildings were operating as factories that needed to run a lot more than it did, and thus it's 5, 6, 8 times the size it needs to be. So ideally we can put a much smaller pump station in there, much more efficient, and it won't cost the city so much money to operate. But it's kind of just the scratching the surface of some of the investments we need to make in the wastewater plants.
We can tap into some of those grants because we flow into the Connecticut, which goes in
Long
Long
Island
Island.
Sound, exactly.
That's great.
Yeah, I can't guarantee we'll get it, but
Right.
we try.
That's at least worth a shot.
Yep, absolutely.
And I'm just sorry. I know that there's emerging technology around wastewater treatment that is I wouldn't say it's passive, but it's like it's not necessarily using electricity to aerate the water. It's more of having an ecosystem that helps recycle. Is that technology moving along at all? I mean, is that something that in 20 years we could potentially say, hey, there's new technology where we could have a way to take this brown water and maybe, or black water, I don't know what it's called, like the real bad stuff,
Yeah.
and turn it into fresher water using a more passive method?
So the reuse of wastewater, it's happening around the country for irrigation, things like that. I don't know that we'd see it happening here. I mean, so say you wanted to reuse our wastewater for irrigation purposes, we'd have to have a way to get it to where, and pumps, pressurized system, you know, you'd have another set of water main in the ground where we need, I got a 100-year-old water main out there that we need to, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like that's one piece of it. I think the other piece is, you know, having greenhouses that have plants that aerate the water, that and then what comes out of that is like a clear water that's usable, even potable. I don't even, maybe not that far.
You know, yeah.
But you know, I mean, just like thinking, because I imagine that the wastewater treatment plant it costs a lot of money to run the machinery on a yearly basis. And it just, again, I love throwing stuff out, see what sticks, you know, but
it's great.
Put it on the radar.
As part of the Honeywell project, we are looking at a solar array for the back of the wastewater treatment plant. We're still studying whether that's feasible or not. They actually did some ground penetrating radar on the site last week, and we'll see kind of where it goes and what, you know, financially, whether that's going to be viable for the city. So
awesome.
That's really.
No, I'm kind of seconding what you're thinking. I know specifically at UMass, they have a collaboration right now with the United Nations where they look at different like nature-based solutions.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding of it is right now it wouldn't fit within our framework, just because of, you know, the way that our community is situated. But it's definitely going to be a thing in the future for sure. Like I would imagine in 20 years, there will be people with PhDs publishing actual systems that we can put in place. So
Because this is pretty large scale, so.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's doable, just probably not right now.
Yeah. Engineering division, so I'll give one about some of the things we're working on for a while. So Union Street, we do have that project. Notice to proceed to the contractor is going to be on schedule to be issued by June 1st. I can't guarantee how soon after that date the contractor will start, but I'm optimistic that they will get underway on Union Street this construction season. Cherry Street, the Municipal Vulnerability Program and CDBG project we're working on. We're going to have everything's going to be brand new on Cherry Street. It's going to be great. Green infrastructure, infiltration basins, repair of the head wall at the brook, it's kind of like land, replacement of the sanitary sewer, replacement of the water main. It's long overdue. It's going to be great to get that project along. So Hoyle Street, I'll go into a little bit more in my next couple slides, but we do have we've got a couple concepts working through. We just finished an application for a complete streets grant to make some great pedestrian safety improvements on Hoyle Street at the intersections with Allen and East Green Street. So we're you know, a lot of this is happening in conjunction with the planning department. I can't say enough great things about working with the planning department and us working with the DPW and the planning department working together to get this. We can really get things moving and things happening. So it's just it's great that Jeff and the people down there are helping us, you know, make everything happen. So.
And these were a lot of the things. I think it was maybe last week or the week before, there was a resident in that area that sent an email out to the city. Was that some of those projects that you were citing in that email, specifically with the?
Is this because of the crosswalk?
Oh
yeah, from Cliff
yes.
Manor. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So we're working. We had to get survey on the intersections. I'll go into a little bit more. I'll show you some pictures of some of the challenges at East Green Street. That's really Allen Street's pretty straightforward. The upgrades there, but East Green Street's a kind of a different animal. So
Okay.
Main Street, everyone's seen the Chapter 90 project we've been working on there for years now, but it's coming together. I wish I had some more concrete dates. I'm working on getting a date for the painting to happen. I want to get those crosswalks painted and fog lines and the permanent yellow lines and thermoplastic paint down. But I don't have a concrete date when that'll happen. It should be within the next few weeks. So, Main South Street, I'll go into some of the improvements we made there a little bit more in the next couple slides. But Fort Hill, Torrey, and Wanderlick, we've got bridges there. Wanderlick's kind of more of a culvert, not really a bridge, but we do need to resurface those. So that's something we're actively searching for funding for to get to have them milled off and repaved. So there's a little more to it than just paving a road, like when it's bridge surface. So we get into that. The engineers are helping us a lot with implementing IWRMP projects, and we are working with Time Bond on some water and sewer, multi-year water and sewer rate structure for the next 3 to 5 years. So there'll be more coming about that.
And do you have kind of, I mean, I guess for the sake of, certainly for the council, but potentially for the public, like, do you have any sort of public documents with, like, to do, like, necessary projects, cost, and projection of, like, when some of these things might be completed? Is that something, or is that more, like you've identified certain areas that need work and how much they might cost, but it's not necessarily organized, it's like a transparent document?
Well, the IWRMP really lists it out and puts costs. Now it's 2018 costs, so I mean everything in there you can count on. What I've been going with is about 30% higher.
Mm-hmm. That's a Time Bond study.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So a lot of the water sewer investments, capital improvements are they're really listed in there. And part of the work we're doing on getting the new rate structure in is going through the IWRMP and taking out the things we've completed and kind of reprioritizing some stuff that needed to be done in 2018 may, either still needs to be done, got done, or we've got something taking priority over something that was a priority then. So it's kind of that's really a living document that we need to keep fresh and keep picking away at the stuff that's in it. So.
I mean, I know something they do in other cities is they have kind of like on the website upcoming, at least for the sake of paving, like paving projects, so you can know either you can submit something like a pothole. Which I think you have something like
we do.
that,
We
right?
do. Yeah, we have a request tracker on the same website.
But also like a calendar of upcoming projects. So for the folks who are like, when are they paving Union Street, which seems to be asked like every day on Facebook, like I could point them to somewhere and they could say, oh, not only are you doing Union Street here, but like you're resurfacing Wonderlick. Like, is there something available like that, or is that something you would be open to doing?
I'll absolutely be open to do it. A lot of it is when I can say we're going to do something, it's very dependent on funding.
Yeah.
And that's the and it's not just me that I got to pull everybody together and say here's what we've got for funding for FY23. Where can we get the most bang for the buck out of it for the people that live in the city? So
I wonder how much that would help too, though, because I think people don't understand often, how the funding works. Whether it be Chapter 90, whether it be appropriations to the city, whether it be the need for grants or state or federal funds.
Yeah.
Just something to think about if there's a way, obviously, that the council could be helpful and the city could be helpful in facilitating that.
One interesting number, especially for this meeting, is so we get about 450 to 500,000. I think our Chapter 90 allotment for FY23 is $480,000. So we look at the work we just did on Main Street, came in, it was just over $1 million to do that. Catch basin replacement to paving. So you're better than 2 years of Chapter 90 funding to tackle a project like that.
Right.
So, I know some of our focus with the FY23 funding is going to be on Willow Street. Whether or not we get the complete streets grant to make the pedestrian safety improvements that I'll go into, I want to get those installed. So, we'll be working with Public Works and our engineering staff to try to allocate the funding we have to do the best we can there. So.
Anything else here?
No, I mean, I like that idea, just because I know, right, just from being out on the campaign trail and collecting signatures, I don't think that people understand the complexity of all of the work that you do and all of the different moving parts, all of the funding sources. And I mean, I don't know how we could convey that in a narrative to the public to help them understand, but I mean, even just seeing this presentation already is magnitudes larger than I even imagined that it was. So
Like one challenge is people don't see the utilities under the road. It might look like we could go, hey, they pave that street, why can't they pave mine? Well, maybe we can't because there's a clay tile pipe sewer main that is completely falling apart underneath it that we need to replace first, that the enterprise fund can't afford to replace. Like, that's part of the issue with Maple Street. The sewer there is not in great shape, and I can't in good conscience go throw a bunch of city funding at paving that street knowing that we're probably going to have to dig it right back up.
It's good to know.
Right.
That's one of the challenges there, and we're taking a good look at that sewer. Work some inspection work into the reuse of the schools, and kind of what happens there. Though I'm sure there probably will be utility connections for the reuse of those buildings. And, as we get a clearer picture of what they're going to do with the schools, we'll be able to make a more informed decision.
And I think that would be, for the school reuse committee, it would be something to have in the frame of reference, is like, especially like a TIF, where we could funnel some tax money back directly into infrastructure. Like, so, think about projects that would encourage a TIF would be huge, because that could help pay for something that we don't necessarily have the money for.
I did have a couple more little points on there. The Park Street, the Safe Routes to School project, that's years out. We are working with the planning department on that. Our engineering staff is. There's some kind of unique challenges to that. There'll be bigger public discussions about that. And then one thing that the department is still responsible for is the maintenance of the closed landfills on Loudville Road and Oliver Street. So some of our resources are directed to those. We have lots of challenges with beavers at the Loudville landfill and Oliver Street.
And is the so Loudville, do we have a ballpark of how much we spend to maintain that?
I could get that for you. I have to.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you realized that was slated for a similar to Oliver Street.
Yep.
It was slated for solar at one point.
Yep.
And I know that we're spending at that time. I think we were between the two landfills. It was like $30,000 a year.
Yep.
To maintain them.
Yep.
And that would be just good for us to know as we look at different projects and different directions to go as a council.
Yes.
It'd be helpful to have that kind of information. Thanks.
Yeah. So South and Hoyle Street pedestrian improvements. We talked about a little bit, but so what we've got here is just we're getting the sidewalk done. I'm really happy to see that project moving forward, and that we were able to work it in and do it as quickly as we can, as quickly as we've been able to. That side, it's just going to be a great connection down to the rail trail for everyone. So
it's huge.
Yeah. So this intersection, Main and South, I know it's been a topic, and we're not. We're doing it's a great example. We're doing what we can with what we have to get a short term, something better in the short term at that intersection. So this was just a great example of us working with the planning department and the owner of a variety store there to get some, ADA accessibility in on the corner there, RRFBs in, and the safer sidewalk on the street. So we have it's a similar situation. Sorry, my picture's not great there. It looks better on the computer. It's a similar problem with Hoyle at East Green Street, because there is no area of refuge on the East Green Street side of Hoyle Street for us to. I'd love to go out there and put at least a flashing LED pedestrian sign in, but I don't have anywhere to put it. Mm-hmm. So it's we've had a conversation with the building owner there, and he's very receptive to us doing something similar to what we did at Main and South, and getting a couple nice aprons along the side of the building, a nice delineated concrete sidewalk with mountable granite curbs so that they can still get the tractor trailers in and out.
Right, because it almost goes right into the parking lot, basically.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
There's just nowhere for it to go.
Yeah.
The sidewalk
That's
is
Valley
not.
Kitchens.
Yes, the sidewalk is not defined there along the side of the building, yet it does start past that property on East Green Street.
Mm-hmm.
So we looked at a couple different concepts for that, moving it to the other side of the street, and that would involve taking quite a bit of front yard from the couple residences that are there, plus the sidewalk is on the opposite side, further up the street. So what we're afraid of is people will continue to just walk along the Valley Kitchens and take the more direct, not use the new sidewalk. So I think, in talking with the building owner, as I said, he was pretty receptive to what the improvements we want to make stay in communication with them moving forward, and hopefully we get the grant money to do it.
Great. And they moved the state highway starts here sign so you can see the flashing
Yes, yes.
lights
And
on
I know,
for South
yes,
Street.
yeah,
Yeah,
that needed
that's
to happen.
great.
So just, for the sake of conversation, the improvements that I just discussed at East Green and Holyoke, cost for that looking at about $160,000 for those upgrades. While I have it up, I've got Allen Street, the improvements that we want to make there too to get some better access into Cliffview. So you can see there's no ramp. The sidewalks in horrible condition going down Allen Street. So part of what we want to do is get a nice concrete ADA compliant sidewalk in down Allen to Tower, and ADA ramps on both sides of Allen Street, even though there is no crosswalk on. There's no sidewalk on the Allen Street side of Holyoke. We'll have something there in case we have a sidewalk in the future.
At one point, that's housing authority, right?
It is.
Is there a certain point where the state becomes responsible for that street, or because it's housing authority land, or is it pretty much just like all the way at the end?
And I could be wrong, but Allen Street is still a city street, so we're going along Allen to Tower, like we plow that. I've plowed it before.
Right.
Allen Street. So my goal with the project is to get a nice ADA compliant sidewalk to Tower Lane, and an RRFB, and ADA ramps and concrete walkout. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll get that to happen in the next couple of years.
Would this be a good time to talk about the Main and South intersection? Do you want to wait till after your presentation?
We certainly can talk about it. I've got some information on it if you want. I've got a couple more. I don't have too much more here.
If that's
fine.
Okay.
I did get some slide. I have plans if you guys want to take a peek at them for the just to give some context to what I just explained. Theoretically, that should come up.
Oh, cool.
So that's the concept plan for the pedestrian safety improvements at East Green and Holyoke.
So you'd have to do some sort of, in terms of
Crosswalks, landing areas.
you'd have to eliminate a portion of the parking lot.
Yeah, they lose a couple parking spaces.
Yeah. They're okay with that.
Yeah, they're receptive to it. We'll stay in communication with them and work through the challenges with them as we get the project going. I think that if we can get this installed, it'll be a great improvement for residents of that side of Holyoke Street that want to get to downtown.
Comments?
I can get you guys copies of this if you want to see it too.
Yeah.
And then Allen Street will just show that. So it's kind of this is the concept for Allen Street, crosswalk across Allen. We'll have the ramp and sidewalk there to expand in the future. If we get some new sidewalk in. This one's pretty straightforward.
Oh, yeah, this sounds good.
Yeah. Oh, man, what's in here? Start over. Just a little bit more about the breakdown of DPW, just our administration. Myself and 2 full-time staff in the office, bookkeeper and accounts payable clerk. We field a lot of our requests, anything anyone needs. We'll have a lot with DPW. They call our office first, and a lot of times we have to send them to the water sewer department or the highway, but we try to get everybody pointed in the right direction. Collector's office handles all the utility bill payments, and they helped us out greatly over the past several months with brush dump stickers, but that has since come back to DPW. So if anybody needs a sticker from Oliver Street brush dump, those are available at the DPW office now. DPW also handles the tree warden. Sarah Greenleaf is the city's tree warden. Does an excellent job for us. Just, yeah. Out there. Absolute expert in urban forestry. Great to have her on us, helping us out. So.
And are these the lights?
So the street light, the top picture there is very similar to the model of street light that we've had installed as part of the EverSource LED street light conversion. I'll take a minute just to point out some of the numbers that I know it's caused a great deal of some inconvenience for a lot of residents. But we've obtained $250,000 in street lights at no cost to the city. Projected annual energy savings of $25,000 a year, and I can confidently say it will save $8,000 to $10,000 in streetlight repairs over the next 5 to 8 years. And so there's as much of an inconvenience as it's caused in certain areas of town. We're going to work through those inconveniences and find a better solution where there is one. And just kind of bear with us, you know. We'll be working on them. So the streetlight, it's very hard, I found, to get a picture of a streetlight, 35 feet in the air on a telephone pole. But if you can kind of see it there, that is a different model. So that streetlight is across from Sharp on Main Street, the barbershop there. We got a complaint from a resident in one of the buildings there that an LED streetlight that we had installed prior to EverSource to replace an old sodium halide one was bothering was really lighting up their apartment. So we had our contractor come and put a different style shield on it to really point it right down where you can see it's almost like a visor on that light. So that's what you'll see, something similar in the areas of town where we're having continued problems.
It seems to mostly be in the streets that are like really tiny, where like the houses are close together. Because I know, like, in like the parking lots or like on the main streets, they do a really good job. But when I started like tracking where all of the complaints were coming into us, it's in like those really tucked in tiny streets where I think the light just bounces off of everything.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And there's a better solution, and whether it's a shield on the existing fixture, whether we remove the fixture that was just installed and save it for when we have trouble with one somewhere else, a totally different fixture. Either way, at the end of the day, we'll have a much more economical streetlight infrastructure than we've had. And greener.
Right.
And how many high pressure sodium lights do we still have out there?
None at this point.
Really?
If you see one out, some of them that are out there were installed at the request of a resident abutting the pole where the property is. So if it didn't get done, it's because it's a privately owned street.
Which I think on Westview Terrace, maybe the street lights are.
Those should be done by now. The pole top units took them a little longer to do.
Yeah, because they're like weird wood-looking poles.
Yep. But those are done.
Okay.
They should be all LED at this point. So
I'll have to check them out. Because you can always tell the HPS ones of the orange.
Yeah.
It's like this bright orange
glow.
glow.
We could get some questions like, why didn't they change that one? Well, that's because a resident requested EverSource to put that one in at a point in time. They actually pay the electricity cost for that on their electric bill.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes around town, handful anyway.
And we've had conversations about this, but just for the public. So there's some supply chain issues in terms of
there was that led to some. There were supply chain issues that led to significant delays in the contractor coming back to town and continuing. And when they were in town and continuing, they were addressing the problem lights. So when everything around, all the parts arrived that they needed to continue with the pole top installations, they took care of what was outstanding for complaints. So if a member of the public still has an issue with their light, they gotta call the DPW and let us know, and we'll see what we can do to get it resolved.
So all the complaints that are out there are addressed.
That could be addressed in the EverSource project. Okay. So there's a handful of work orders we sent out to USNE, our city's streetlight repair contractor, last week that are to address some of the lights that are too bright or maybe at the wrong angle.
Okay.
Where there's that the solution might be an adjustment, it might be a new fixture, it might be a shield, but Energy Resources did what they were required to do.
What do you think the timeline might be for that, for the other, those other?
Generally, it's about 3 weeks. Once we
Okay.
send a work order to USNE, they're usually fixed within 2 to 3 weeks.
So hopefully by June, these are the outstanding.
The ones that we've
concerns.
sent,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right, and again, people could just call the DPW.
Yep, just call the office and let us know if you still have if it hasn't been resolved or it's not it's not resolved enough. Well, then we'll see what else what if anything we can do to make it better.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for. I know there was a lot of things to field around that. So thank you.
So that's basically it. So for you guys, take whatever questions.
We have one other. Any questions? I think I asked all the ones I was going to ask along the way. There was something I was thinking about and I forgot. Any other questions from the committee members, Councilor Derby?
Sorry.
Your meeting tonight?
Yeah,
We
public
did
works.
public safety.
Are you looking for it?
Work Activity Committee?
Is that the safety complex? Or no?
Which one?
The
The
Democratic
Committee.
There's 32 base. Yeah,
The-
what is it?
next door.
Next door, police and fire station.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Riley?
No, I'll just say, I mean, this is really good information. A lot of things that I didn't know about, a lot of working parts. So, I mean, I know obviously you're well respected in the city, but just to really say, like, it's impressive the amount of work that you all do on a regular basis. And the fact that most of this goes on behind the scenes and the public doesn't even know about it means that you guys are handling everything really well. So,
Thank you. Yeah.
definite compliments for that.
Yeah, we got a great group of people at DPW. Move mountains with these guys. We really can.
Yeah, I'll say publicly too. I mean, the how responsive your department is, certainly you, Director. It's very heartening because I mean, unfortunately, what it boils down to when you talk about a city and like great schools or economic development, all people care about is the roads and the potholes.
Yeah.
and so
Hey, I get it. I don't like hitting them either. Nobody does. There's a lot.
So I'm thankful that, I guess it's a question for the committee. So this was a great overview, and I mean, certainly no need to reinvent the wheel, but we're doing these quarterly. I think, I'll ask all of it to the committee members. So what type of information do you think would be valuable? Next time I certainly won't be as much. Maybe updates on some of the projects we talked about. What would you like to see going forward now that we've gotten everything? What would you like to hear when the director comes back in 3 months?
I mean, I think the pieces that are relevant to this committee are important. One of the questions that I was going to ask, I know your predecessor was not into these, even though I tried to convince him many times. Speed humps. Like, this is going to be something that, is going to be part of the discussions within our committee as we look at speed mitigation, as electronic signs are on our agenda now.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, speed mitigation is something that all of us, I think, are getting, at least I am getting a lot of emails about. And so as we kind of move into this problem-solving phase, I wanted to get your kind of perception on speed humps, or speed tables to look at as a speed mitigation tool, specifically as it relates to maintaining the roads, plowing the roads, and any sort of issues that could arise in that realm. I think that that's going to be helpful to us as a committee, and also looking at the at the other pieces that are relevant to this committee, the sidewalks, the painting crosswalks, those types of things are going to be the public safety related stuff. I think is going to be critical to keep a finger on the pulse of.
So early?
No, I mean, that sounds good. I mean, particularly because there's a lot of intersecting questions for this committee related to, policing traffic, from the police department. So that would be definitely something to explore, how we can collaborate across departments to try to fix some of these issues without spending as much money. I think the cheaper we can go, but still be effective. So, I mean, even if that's just like, ideas that you can think of that would help.
I mean, so there's, we do what we can. We, put fog lines to kind of, I think we just did on Clark Street, to just kind of visually narrow the lane and try to get people to slow down. I mean, speed humps, they're a tool in kind of the toolbox for speed mitigation, but we have to consider drainage around them, the noise, the associated noise, the deceleration, acceleration, and suspension noise from the car. So it's very easy to, you're going to get people to slow down, but you could create a noise issue too, and people hit it and then maybe they zoom right away. So you got to kind of be cognizant of whether what's the best solution. I was contacted by a resident on Prospect Street that was asking us to put one in there. So I'm afraid that's that being a cut through to Pleasant Street. So look at what we can do there. Prospect Street being so wide presents different challenges. But
I guess another question would be, if it's all right.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you have a relationship with your counterpart in Northampton? Because like that, like the noise thing for speed hump. That would since they put a lot in the last couple of years, that would be a good way to see what sounding board, what's their experience. Sure. I think that would be valuable for us as we kind of weigh these things. But I think it is going to be. Obviously, it's going to be really important to have that type of input from you. And I think it's. I'll give some accolades here where they're due, because I think that they really are. Is that the coordination that you specifically, as the leader of the DPW, have implemented with the planning department is impressive. I haven't seen it in my time in the city be that coordinated, and I think what we're seeing is a result that is much more robust.
A lot of stuff can happen.
So I would appreciate that a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the pieces of feedback I've received as we talk about speed mitigation is we also need to obviously include the police in that discussion, because where there's perceived speeding, where there really is speeding, are two different things.
Yes.
And then also have to consider, emergency vehicles. So, the fire trucks and police cars, what are certain travel routes that would be that might be less optimal to have, speed humps in those areas. But I think we've talked about this. We need to kind of fine tune that and really get that in. I agree with everything that the committee members have said. I think obviously probably strategic updates on projects when you come back. I'd like to hear about if we're anywhere with the Glendale Bridge, for instance, or maybe nowhere. And obviously fleet needs, appropriation, stuff like that. So, unfortunately, there'll probably be something in 3 months that will be a big topic of discussion. We'll just talk about that. So, I'd imagine in follow-up meetings, it'd probably be more like a 20-minute, kind of follow-up.
Yeah.
If that's not too onerous.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Do you have thoughts about what you would like to tell us in follow-up meetings, or?
No, I think just keeping you guys apprised of projects and how we're trying to keep things moving and efforts we're making.
Yeah.
Where someone comes to us with whether it's a pedestrian safety concern or a speeding concern, we do listen and we want to do what we can. It's just multiple factors to consider as we try to resolve some of those problems.
I think you being on the agenda is very important for the public, because of everything my colleague said. Is that there's a lot of concerns that surround what your department does, and I think a lot of it's invisible.
Yeah. And
there's so much happening that people don't know about, and then the things that are kind of seen, I don't think unfortunately a lot of our residents don't understand the complexity, and so this is a good opportunity to provide kind of an educational service too.
Absolutely.
So, I guess just the last thing that I would want to know, obviously no public works department is fully funded in all the ways they want to. I think everyone in the country is needing more money, but compared to the types of projects that are going on, right, taking other things like repairing vehicles or purchasing new vehicles, would you say that financially you're able to sustain the things that you're doing, or should the city take a different approach in trying to increase funding sources for the department? With reason, obviously. Not everything gets funded, but I just want to make sure that from a longevity standpoint, looking at the next 25 years or so, are we sustainable enough that we can keep maintaining things as they're going?
Well, I mean, on the water and sewer side, where rates, I mean, there's going to be some challenging conversations soon about rates and how and the investments we need to make in the city's water and sewer infrastructure. As far as our, like, a lot of the fleet, the DPW fleet is funded through the enterprise fund, being water, sewer, wastewater department vehicles, highway department. You know, would I like to see the fleet turned over there more quickly?
Yeah.
Yes, but we, you know, I'm also sensitive to people's, you know, what the city can afford. But we, you know, we got 2 excellent mechanics right now that keep all of our stuff going. We do hit a point with things like the truck 33 I talked about, the street sweeper, where it's not in the city's best interest to keep investing money in these vehicles that are just getting so old. So, you know, maybe we look to replace everything every 8 to 10 years, which is longer than some other cities do, but maybe not as long as we have been. So maybe that's a goal we work towards financially. But, you know, it's all, you know, we just do what we can.
Right. Okay.
So kind of a lightning round now. So a couple of, we're just gonna do free association. No, kidding. So we have 2 other items on our agenda that directly impact or are related to your department. So one quickly, it's farther down, but it's just a quicker one. Is the so we're starting to discuss maybe more permanent electric speed monitoring signs.
Sure.
We had a conversation with Chief Alberti. I think there was general consensus, both of this committee and his department, that it's a good idea. So we've started kind of researching those. I want to talk to him more about, you know, where we would need those, and then I guess just in general input. I guess your thoughts about that.
I think they're great. I mean, historically they've always been managed by the police department. We're happy to help. We've installed poles for them to put them on in areas where there wasn't one.
Yeah.
You know, we're happy to help with them. If the city was able to fund a couple more, I wouldn't mind having our staff deploy them. However, I do think there's some benefit to. Sergeant Alexander does a great job of getting them out there and you know, really tracking the data that comes in, and then they can enforce accordingly. We're certainly happy to help.
Great.
If the city wants to fund a few more and get them out there. Even
Right. My favorite. These ones are permanent.
Yeah.
Oh, permanent. Okay.
These would be permanent signs that
Yeah.
would stay in that location. Most of them actually upload data to the cloud, so it goes directly to the police station. I mean, it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
Which I'm curious.
It's the 15 SD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly not that expensive.
It's like 2,900, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff's not as bad as you think.
Yeah.
And that the one that's like multiple colors.
Multiple
field
colors,
feedback.
has feedback. If you go over it, it says thank, or if you stay within, it says thank you. And
Yeah. Oh,
that's pretty. It's kind of cool.
Can I ask you, Counselor, is it because it has the letters
SD. Yep, there's like there's my initials. That's the one.
Yeah, so we should.
No, but there's SL too. But that one's
Right.
a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
Have you thought where you would want to put them?
That's a conversation I think that it would be helpful to have you and the chief
Absolutely.
to contribute to that discussion, and also to know, you know, it's going to also be a budgeting thing. Like, how many do we have? How much can we afford? What are the strategic points?
In my years working for the city, the 2 worst streets to work on. We don't have blue lights on our trucks. You know,
Right.
they're yellow, so people won't listen to it. So the 2 worst I've ever worked on were Line Street
Mhm.
and Park Street.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Park
Yeah.
Street.
Park
we
Street's
had a
rough.
we had a valve break on a water main in Park Street right by Ward Avenue, and that was one of the most treacherous nights I think we've ever.
Can you imagine?
I can't tell you why at Park Street, but people speed there.
Well, that's my precinct, and I have about 10 emails right here from people that live on Park Street being like, "It is a racetrack here." So
Yeah, I think there would be a general consensus that the kind of no-brainer signs would be gateway roads. So
Sure.
Line, which feeds in the park, you know, Holyoke, Northampton, probably maybe East, and then like we want to get more information from the police and certainly DPW too, because you probably have some thoughts about it too. Like what are some of the inner ring, you know, like so. I think probably what we do at this point, I can forward you the email with some of the the signs, and then I didn't hear back from any other vendors, but you know, what we'd probably do is convene a meeting to talk about that sometime after the budget stuff's over. So I'm glad you're in support. And then again, just briefly, you know, I know there's been a lot of talk about the traffic light of Main South. I think police offered some really convincing data as to why that would be beneficial. You know, mostly just based on how many exits we're seeing there, and then comparing that to Northampton and West before and after there was a light there.
Yeah.
And you know, so you've identified obviously a very long list of items that the city, I mean, especially the Glendale Bridge, that's kind of like an obvious one. But you know, I guess the question is cost, and so that we could figure out, you know, is this part of a laundry list? You know, I've had some conversations with Representative Carey about there's ways that we can carve this out separately. It's a little, as you know better than I do, I could probably speak to it better than I can. It's a little complicated there because of where the city street just abuts the state highway.
Yes.
But I guess, you know, do you have a general idea about kind of costs around that project?
So it's a very challenging project because we don't have the counts according to Mass DOT to warrant a light at that intersection.
Mm-hmm.
So our plan is to get out there in the fall when the school opens and get new fresh traffic counts and see what those numbers give us.
Mm-hmm.
I do have some figures that I can talk about, but that are very I'll say non-scientific.
Yeah.
They're fairly loose figures, but if we kept the current lane configuration, minor modifications to driveways, and just kind of did as little as possible to get a light installed there, we'd probably be looking at $600,000 to $700,000. I'd probably say closer 7 to 8, given the way we're seeing bids come in and the costs associated with things right now.
Mm-hmm.
However, as part of that, we're looking at $65,000 to $75,000 in design work with borings to make sure we can support, we're supporting the streetlight mast arm properly. And what I am apprehensive to do is ask for $75,000 to design a light installed at that intersection when we don't have the counts to get Mass DOT to okay a light getting installed at that intersection. So, you know, like in the fall, we'll get out there, we'll get fresh traffic counts and see what that tells us. I mean, it's a dangerous intersection. When I worked at the water department, I drove that way every day to work, and you know, you see the kids walking, looking down at their phone, and going to school, and there is, you know, there's some improvements that can be made there.
Not to mention there's a bus stop
Yes.
in front of the package store too.
Yeah.
So it's like a conduit for kids. Now I have a question real quick, Greg. That $600,000 to $700,000 kind of guesstimate. Could that potentially include like a bump out at each of the angled part of the section, so it would narrow it to one lane, so people wouldn't be going around people if they're turning down South Street on either side? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we could work into the design. The bigger of a project we make out of it, the more it's going to cost.
Right.
You know, when the other figures I have here, you know, we look at a total redo and we start talking about turning lanes and really making it, you know, you get out to the $1.5 million mark, you know, pretty quick.
And something that someone had asked, I'm sorry, before I go back, Councilor Riley, do you have questions about this?
No, not at all. I'm just doing some meeting minute stuff right now.
So one thing that, just for my edification too, one thing that's sort of kind of like pointed out certainly on that intersection is that you want to, if you just basically have traffic flowing down Main Street, you don't necessarily want the light to turn red. So, so in other words, if there's no one coming from south, so there's technology that basically has like sensors or something.
Oh, sure, to sense a car at the light, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be something we would try to build into.
Yeah.
That.
Okay. That's why I told them.
The big thing is getting the counts, getting the traffic count to be there.
Yeah.
For it all to be warranted.
Right, to justify the design, which now if we did have that design in place, could that leverage us some potential grants, or, you know, if it was a shovel ready
oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the biggest focuses between us the mayor's office, the planning department's having shovel-ready projects as infrastructure money comes out of Washington or from the state level. So some of the appropriations you've seen me bring, for the wastewater pump stations, things like that, we're really just in an effort to get projects. This one's ready to go. Let's do it. So, kind of a nice thing about the sidewalk we're doing on South Street. That was, we had the contractor there. We had a contract in place. We had the item in the contract for concrete sidewalk installation, and we were able to just say, take it down to the bike path.
Yeah, that's great.
And the reality with funding, if we could get funding, it would probably be a match, right? It probably wouldn't be at all.
There would be, there generally, almost with every grant program, there's a 20-30% match, 25% match.
Yep.
Some of that we're able to take our staff time, the city staff time that works on, that is devoted to the grant project, and use that to, take away from the cash amount that's necessary.
Okay.
So,
Use it as in kind.
yes.
Anything else?
I don't think so. Thanks. Shoot.
Yeah, very thorough, and Councilor Riley. I just once again I just need to kind of. There's one other item on our agenda. I just need to get the information for it, and we can have a discussion about that. So I think we've covered everything. Very much appreciate your time and thorough presentation. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, any no opposed or nays? Meeting is adjourned at 7:18.
You have to click the clicker.
Oh yeah. Thank you. So